Hello, and welcome to the introduction to our stats plugin that'll be soon to be released on the Unreal Engine or Fab Marketplace. Today we're going to cover how to begin sessions, how to register the stats you want to use with those sessions, how to modify each stat that you add to the session, listen for value changes on those stats, and how to end the session finally. And the very first thing we're going to want to do is come over to our content browser, and we're going to want to go in the actor that we want to begin our session in. So what I'm going to do for this example is I'm going to right-click my example class that I have here, although you're welcome to follow along in an empty actor or anything you'd like to do this in. And I'm going to create a child blueprint class of my example actor, and I'm going to call it BP underscore test game, just for this example here. Go ahead and open that up. And I'm going to come on over here to the event graph, and the very first thing we're going to want to do is begin our stat session. So in order to do this, I would just find a place like begin play or something where you're going to initialize your logic at the beginning of your game. For this example, I'm going to go ahead and override a function that's built into my example game class called event begin game. Okay, and then the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to drag off of the execution and type in begin stat session. Now, we're going to want to give this a name, although you are entirely welcome to leave the default session if you don't want to give it a name and you just want to register all of your stats under one session for your game or your project. You're welcome to do so. I'm going to give this a name for testing purposes. I'll call this example session. Okay. And off of our success here, the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to register our game stats. So in order to do this, I like to create a function, keep everything organized. So I'll call this register stats. And inside of here, the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to want to register our first stat. So this tutorial, we're going to cover simple statistics, although in the future we'll cover other types of stats as well. So in order to do this, we're going to type register simple statistic. And then for this tutorial purpose, we're going to go by name. We're going to go ahead and give our stat a name. For this example, I'm going to call it score, just for testing purposes here. And then we're going to want to put in our session name that we had initialized here earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this from here just to be safe. And I'll go ahead and paste it in my session name there like so. Now afterwards, you're welcome to add more stats if you'd like. Although for this purpose, I'm just going to register one stat just to keep things short and simple. The next thing we're going to do is come back to our event graph here, and off of our success, we're going to go ahead and either type out our function here that we created, or for me, I'm going to go ahead and drag it off here and just plug it in like so. We have a register stats function there like so. Okay, so the very next thing we're going to do is we're going to want to listen for our stat changes. I'm just going to do it directly inside of here and then later turn it into a collapse graph to keep it organized. So what I'm going to do is drag off of my register stats output and type in listen for stat value changed. Now for this case, we only have one stat that we want to keep track of, although if you have multiple stats, feel free to add them all and repeat this like so. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just type score for the stat that I want to track, because that's the statistic that I've registered. Then I'm going to go ahead and put in my session name. I'll go ahead and paste what I copied earlier. Keep track of on value changed, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to print a string. And then pretty much all I'm going to do here is I'll type in, well, I'll go ahead and I'll just copy this over here, my format string from earlier. Plug that in my string like so. And then for the new value, I'm going to plug that into my amount that I put into my format text so I can see when the value's been changed. And so now this is going to fire every time that this value has been changed. You could register an event up to here if you'd like, completely up to you. So the very next thing I'm going to do is show you how to modify your simple statistic. So in order to do this, I already have input set up in this class, so I'm just going to simply come in here, search for left mouse button. And off of this, off of press, I'm going to go ahead and type in modify simple statistic. And then off of this, you have a couple different options here for your operations. I'm going to go ahead and just do add for this example. Later we'll cover the other types. And under amount, I'm going to give it 5. My stat name is going to be the same one I put in earlier. It's going to be score. Then my session name, I'm going to, well, I'm not going to paste it in because apparently it's wrong. I'm going to go ahead and copy it, paste it back in here. And there we go. Off of success, I want to print the value of my score as it's been modified. So I'm going to go ahead and type in print string. And off the new value, I'm going to go ahead and connect it in there like so. Move it up here, change color, and there we go. And so lastly, I want to end my session when I end my game. For this example, I'm going to go ahead and override my end game function that I've created from my base class. And I'll go ahead and I'll type in event end game here. And then what I'm going to do off of this is I'm just going to simply type end stat session like so. And that's going to go ahead and end the stat session after we input our session name there. And we can just do a print string and type in session ended like so. And we'll come over here and go ahead and test it out. When I left click, you can see the values being modified up at the top left as shown. When I end the game, it's going to say session ended. And then when I go back in, it'll start over. So we'll be able to have a fresh statistic. All right, that's it for this video. In future videos, we'll cover other types of statistics, such as composite or custom statistics. And we'll also cover saving and loading sessions, as well as other planned features of the plugin. We look forward to seeing what you guys would do with it, and thank you for watching.